everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome. I am the writer creator of Hot Angry Mom, which is a dark comedy about a people-pleasing mom who discovers that anger is her superpower when a video of her epic meltdown goes viral. You can check out the show on our Hot Angry Mom YouTube channel, which is maybe where you're viewing this from now. I don't actually understand how the lives are linked yet, but we'll find this out. So this is my first ever live, at least solo, and I'm experimenting. I'm trying something new that I call Truth Tuesdays, and I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. There are various things going on in the world that I feel so strongly about, passionately, and I want to use my voice and speak to them and share whatever personal experience, wisdom, insights that I have from my life. I guess I'm particularly speaking to moms, but all people really are welcome. And I think a lot of the things that I'll be addressing are not only relevant to moms. My comedy series is inspired by my real life as a mom. I am a person who grew up feeling like anger was a destructive, ugly, unhelpful emotion, and that expressing my anger was it was terrifying, actually, to me. And I recently had a friend, Cheney Waits, who said there's a difference between being confrontational and confronting. Confrontational is literally like, I'm trying to come out and pick a fight with you. I'm trying to start a row of some kind. And confronting is literally staying in your spine and speaking your truth and sharing what you need to share. And you don't have to be actually antagonistic or fighting with someone. You're literally confronting something that's happening. And there's a real power and authenticity in staying in your spine and speaking from your truth. And I literally want to practice that because it feels really important, not only to be able to listen with empathy to other people, which I am very, very good at, but also to be able to take the truth that I know as a mother in the United States today and to speak to these experiences. So I will say that I'm a little nervous. My eyes are blurring a little bit. My ears, I think, are a little bit flushed, and I'm a little bit shaky. And maybe moms, other people out there identify with the experience of sharing something that's important to you, maybe on Facebook or Instagram or some social media platform, and immediately having people respond not with curiosity or questions or their own point of view, but actually like attacking in very hateful and aggressive ways. And sometimes for me, my response is just to get silent, right? To just withdraw, which is probably what they intend. Like, if I don't agree with you and you say something, shut up. I don't want to hear you. And I really wish for our country and the whole world that we can get better at really listening to each other, listening to understand where other people are coming from, trying to find common ground where we have it and work for solutions instead of just fighting. So if you've watched Hot Angry Mom, you'll notice that my character, aka me, really suppresses her anger, her rage, and it comes out in unhealthy but somewhat hilarious ways because it is a comedy. And part of the journey that I went on in creating that was learning that anger is healthy, and listening to your anger helps you understand when your boundaries are being crossed or injustices are occurring. And it's really important that we have boundaries and we be honest and we be clear with each other. It helps everyone sort of navigate this social space between us all. I feel a little rambly. This isn't where I meant to be. Okay, so I am here today because I wanted to talk a little bit about something that happened in the United States last week. That is that the current administration made huge cuts to the Department of Education, laying off over 1,000 employees in the Department of Education, which only had a little over 2,000 employees. So it's essentially cutting off half of the workforce for this particular federal agency. And I just want to share what this agency does. I am not a journalist, but I will tell you about my own personal experience as a mother, as a student, as a teaching artist who's gone into schools and worked with students, as a recipient of some of the things that the Department of Education has offered to me. I have to breathe. Okay, so basically, the Department of Education at the federal level does a couple different things. They oversee Pell Grants, which are funds for low-income individuals to help them access higher educational levels, like college, and levels of higher education, right? Which can look different in different places, but it helps people access college. They also oversee IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and make sure that young people with disabilities are getting services to help with their education. And it also oversees research, which helps improve education for all children in our country. I feel that those cuts are intentional. They're part of the Project 2025 plan. There are people who believe that there shouldn't be a Department of Education, that education should be left up to states or left up to individuals. And we had that in our country, which meant that lots of children didn't get to go to school at all. They had to work. When you don't have access to education, there's all kinds of fields that you're locked out of. There's opportunities that you can't access. I don't believe in a hierarchy of some jobs are better than other jobs, but I do believe that each individual has a calling and some unique gifts that you are born with or that you grow to be inspired and connected to. And as a mother, I wanted nothing more for my son than for him to have the ability, when he discovered what brings him alive, to be able to pursue it, and to have opportunities to go into whatever that path is. And without education, without certain kinds of training, without certain kinds of networks and connections, you literally can see your dream right here and not be able to access it. And I want every child to be able to access whatever their dream is. So let me just go back to first the Pell Grant, because I was a recipient of a Pell Grant and I am so deeply grateful for my education. I grew up in Baltimore City, and when I was in high school, I was in foster care, which meant that I didn't have parents. So then when they're configuring your parental contributions, I would be at a zero, right? So basically financial aid in part is figured out by like how much do your parents make, so therefore how much could they conceivably contribute to your education. And then how much are you responsible for, et cetera, et cetera. And a Pell Grant it's usually just like maybe a few $1,000s. So depending on where you're going to school, it's either most of your tuition or barely any of it, but it's really important. And I am deeply grateful that I had the opportunity to go to college. I know that a lot of kids in foster care, that's a hard leap because they're not well prepared, and there's all kinds of things that, that you go through as a young person. But I'm grateful for all of the teachers that I ever had, because so many of them shaped me. They saved my life. They introduced me to other perspectives, to compassion, to getting along with other human beings. Like, one of the most important jobs in our entire country are teachers and what they do to love and care for our young people. And they already are under-resourced. So cutting the Department of Education and people that support various programs that support educators and ultimately filter down to our children is just a really cruel act. And I understand that people are concerned about efficiency and waste. And I know that large departments and federal bureaucracy can move slow. Sometimes it is ineffective. Sometimes it's incredibly frustrating. But it is what has made it possible for every child in our country to go to school, to get an education. And without a strong educational system, our country, it's already, our standards are dropping. It will be really hard for our country to survive, to create healthy, happy people who can have meaningful work and get along with other people without education, without public education, without shared education. So coming back to the Pell Grant again, I went to a school called Goucher College, which is a private liberal arts school. And I was actually a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion candidate, you might look at me with blonde hair and blue eyes and be like, what are you talking about? But as a student in Baltimore City, the college wanted to make sure that they had space at that very expensive liberal arts school to bring students from local Baltimore, right, the community which they are adjacent to, and make sure they got to be educated in this school too. They had a commitment to bringing in low-income students, including someone like me who was in foster care. My perspective and my experience diversified the school that I was in. And I had students that, some of my best friends went to very elite prep schools before coming to that school. We learned from each other. There was public school kids and private school kids, and we learned from each other's life experience, and it helped expand our empathy, our understanding, and our care for each other. So I know that the Pell Grants are not necessarily wiped out because of this. They will just be a little harder to access, which hopefully won't prevent some students from being able to go to school. But funding higher education and giving young people, an opportunity to discover more about themselves and the world is huge. And so I just want to give a love letter to teachers, say thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for people that support grants and funds for low-income people. Thank you for trying to make education accessible to everyone. It's not an elitist thing that only a few people should get. It really should be a human right, that we get to learn from one another. All right, so that's Pell Grants. And then I think I also would like to just talk about IDEA, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and why that's so important. So the Department of Education currently ensures that students are getting these services. I am a mother of a young person who is diagnosed with ADHD, and I know what it's like to have your child struggle in school, and to have teachers who, as lovely as they are as humans, maybe don't know as much about small accommodations that they could make so that your child would be able to fit in and have a positive learning experience. So we need experts, right? People who really know how to work with young people on the autism spectrum, people who know how to work with people with limited mobility, people who know how to work with all kinds of brains. And we need to make sure that there are services that meet those needs. So speech therapy is a service some students get. There are physical therapies that other students get. I know, we think about equity, and I think sometimes people think that everybody should get the same, that would be equal. But, at least I and many other people think like equity is actually everybody getting what they need. So sometimes that looks a little different. And so sometimes students who have very high needs, we need to take communal resources and make sure those students are also educated and get to be in community with other people, and that they and their rights are protected. My son was able to get an IEP, which helped let teachers know some accommodations they could make to help him have a better educational experience. We were able to get some tutoring services for a time that he needed to help kind of keep him up. And now I'm so proud to say that my son is studying computer science. He got an A in calculus last semester. Anyone whose mom knows you just want your kid to be able to live a full and happy life. And the education department does so much towards this, and the cutting of these services. Literally 1,000 people got laid off, right? And they all have families, and their income contributes to the community. So I care about those workers who are contributing to the larger workforce. I care about the people who will be impacted by services being removed. Also, I'm sorry, my thoughts are a little... I didn't write this out. I'm speaking spontaneously, but I felt like I needed to speak about this because I have so much direct experience that it's not just me talking about something I've read about or see from afar and care about. I had the joy to work on an I-4 grant, which was a federal research grant in education for young people particularly on the autism spectrum, are young people that I worked with, but it was students in District 75 in New York City, which are students who are not necessarily integrated in mainstream schools because their needs are so high. And so various service professionals and teachers with higher level of expertise are able to be in facilities to serve students. And the research grant that I worked on as a teaching artist, what we are, because arts have been so fundamentally cut out of schools, is they actually hire artists to come in and give arts instruction in schools in various ways. I actually have a master's in applied drama, which is using theater in education, also using theater in correctional facilities for young offenders, and drama therapy. And so in this particular grant, we were looking at how arts can be used as a vehicle to deliver education. So maybe we use music or visual arts like painting, or dance, movement, or theater, storytelling, in order to help more effectively teach math, science, social studies, etc. Because it brings students alive and it taps into other skills that they have, and it taps into other senses and ways of knowing. And for 4 years, I had the joy to learn a whole curriculum, and to go into schools and help teachers try out that curriculum with their students. And I got to see the most amazing results in young people who would suddenly make eye contact and come alive and open up and connect to another human being. I know I feel like I'm kind of rambling, but I just want to say educational research is so important, right? It's how do we learn? How do we learn more effectively? I know that there is so much frustration in this country because it does feel like our school system is not doing so well in many ways, and there are individuals who are so frustrated by their particular local school or school system, and I absolutely empathize. But cutting resources isn't going to make these problems go better. And as a person who's also worked in some of the most elite, and by that I mean financially well-off schools in our entire country, possibly our world. I've taught at international schools. I've taught at prep schools here in Manhattan. And I've seen the difference between students who literally go to schools with swimming pools and multiple libraries and multiple gyms, who study abroad as a young person and speak 3 languages by the time they're in middle school, who have teachers that have PhDs and classrooms that have 12 to 15 students in them, not because those students have special needs, but because their family have the resources to put into these learning institutions. And they're amazing schools, and everybody would want to put their kids there if they could. But the problem with the privatization of schools is it takes resources, and it says some kids, if your families are wealthy enough, get to have this kind of education. And other schools where the actual buildings are dilapidated, your kids have to survive through this other sort of situation. And Horace Mann wrote, I think it's called like On Free Education or something like that. I'm sorry, it's been like 20 years since I read this book. And in that book, he was just describing sort of having some sort of federal Department of Education, right? Free making public schools available to everyone. And I don't want our country or any country to go back to a place where kids can't be kids and they can't go to school and they can't learn. I don't know that anything I said has any value to anyone else. I feel deeply uncomfortable. I'm really scared about what the current administration is doing in this country. Recklessly cutting in so many different departments, firing well-educated, hardworking Americans that provide great service to other Americans. Lying and calling it efficiency and saying we're rooting out fraud. I guess my appeal is to moms, because every mom I know has a really fierce love for their child and wants the best for them, and also tends to want a lot for other children too. My appeal is that you find out what's happening in your local school system, find out what's happening federal. These cuts are not to local school boards yet. I would just appeal to you to advocate for all children, not just your own, because we don't live in a world by ourselves. We are global citizens. We are all one. We're all interconnected. We impact each other. God, I wish I had a good wrap up or summary. All right, this is just me showing up as an artist and trying to speak from my truth today. Perhaps I will have a better format or more researched. But it's so interesting that I feel like I'm not allowed to speak unless I've done a ton of fucking research, unless everything's perfectly outlined and rehearsed before I show up. Then I feel like I don't have the right. So that's actually what I'm trying to reclaim. So this is just for me, I guess. But if you feel similarly, give me a shout out. Tell me what you're thinking about, what you care about. If there's more research that you want to share, I guess I would love to hear from some of those federal workers directly about what they were doing in terms of their jobs and what they're not doing. The people who are left behind, they might be too afraid to speak because they don't want to get fired. I don't want to live in a culture where we can't speak. Okay, so this is the rage part of Hot Angry Mom, starting to come out. I don't want to live in a world where I am afraid to speak because I'm afraid that my civil rights will be denied at some point. I don't want to be afraid that I'll lose my job or get fired because I'm literally trying to speak love. I'm trying to speak about what I care about. I don't want to censor myself in those ways. It's still very... Before I went live today, I was thinking about Elizabeth Gilbert. She has a Substack called Letters from Love, where she asks love, what would you have me know today? And she tries to listen to the voice of love and then write from that place to herself. And from that, she's developed a practice of self-love and treating herself more kindly. And I was kind of thinking of trying to make live videos like this as a way to try to speak from love, as a form of prayer for our collective well-being. Because when I was in elementary school, I remember having the most wonderful teachers. And I remember that at the time I had been taught the idea of the melting pot, right? That people from all over the planet came to America and that we all could live in harmony and become this beautiful place for all kinds of people where we supposedly have liberties and freedom. And as I got a little older, the idea of the melting pot, I heard a different perspective because we don't want to all melt into the same thing, right? What's beautiful about us is that we each have our own unique perspective from the experiences that we have on the planet. And it's all magic. It's all very valuable. And so the more that we can connect and hear each other's stories and voices, it's amazing. I had a vision of this country as a diverse and fair and just place. And right now, as I watch students being silenced for protesting and speaking their beliefs, as I watch people being thrown into detention centers, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, daughters, scientists, artists, I just feel like we're losing our humanity. And there is no other. There is no other. We are all one. No, I see one person showed up and one person likes what I have to say. Thank you. um, I wish I could do something meaningful. I guess it's why I'm trying to talk right now. I'm not trying, I'm talking. I'm talking. As an artist, because I'm a writer and I'm an actress. I'm a storyteller, a comedian, I'm a voice coach. I wish that there was something more that I could be doing to make the world a more just and kind place. And I wish that we could all commit to that every single day. And I mistook kindness for goodness as a young person. Not kindness, niceness. I'm going to rephrase that. Niceness for goodness. I think being kind is very important. But being nice isn't always authentic. And I don't think that's of service. How do we make spaces where people can show up authentically and share their hard spaces, their hard truths, right? Even when they're uncomfortable. How can we sit with other people's discomfort? How can we sit with when people are angry with us and disagree with us and still try to hear them? How do we bridge those seeming chasms? Because they feel very wide right now. And I'm not doing it perfectly myself. I have family members I won't even speak to because I'm so infuriated. I'm so infuriated. But I want to create a world for everyone's child where children grow up and they can live in better than what we have right now. And I wish in some way that moms can unite and that we can figure out how to support our kids and support education. How we can actually see every adult, what they were like when they were 4 or 5, and realize we're all just 4 or 5-year-olds, even if we're walking around in old meat suits. We're still those weird little beautiful people. Okay, I'm rambling. I'm not sure where I'm going. So I think I will sign off for now. I wish I had a great conclusion. Just try to be love. Try to be loving to people, especially people that are in particularly vulnerable situations that are being attacked or demonized right now. Sometimes groups create an other to feel like they're a group and there are no actual others. We just cut off parts of ourselves. And as in Hot Angry Mom, when you cut off a part of yourself, like your anger or your vulnerability or your love, it has a weird way of coming out, and it's usually not very healthy. So finding ways to be whole together, be in community, be love. All right, that's my Truth Tuesday. And yeah, you can drop us a line. And I'm going to try to come back every week. I'm going to maybe be more organized next time. I don't know. Maybe I won't be. Maybe it's fine to be messy. But thanks.